K.A. Salter Books video, take 3. Today is a day of many takes, as you're seeing. This is number 3. I didn't like the first 2. Anyway, hey everybody, Kim Salter from K.A. Salter Books Facebook page. Shout out to my homies, all the folks, sorry, on my Facebook page, K.A. Salter Books. Shout out to Twitter. Shout out to Instagram, and shout out to everybody else. I think we've covered all the bases now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my teaser trailer from earlier where I was kind of showing you the visual representation of my tools of the trade, as I like to call them. And I hope you enjoyed my Bug Jam video from yesterday. When I started this on this YouTube journey of trying to promote my books, it was recommended that you find something else to talk about other than your books too, to make it more well-rounded. I guess that was the idea. So I've really taken to that, and I showed you my yay Bug Jams. Awesome. Hang on just a sec. Be right back. Oh, yeah, my editing. Every time I hear a Harley start or a car start, I'm like, no. I'm sitting outside again, as you could tell. Anyway, in the teaser trailer for today's show, I got into a little bit. I kind of showed you what I was using, and you probably saw my playlists on iTunes, and you saw some of my picture folders. I also, for me, for inspiration, it's usually visual and oral through the ears too. Anyway, I wanted to back up and tell you one thing. If you're considering writing, go for it. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how good you think you are, or how bad you think you are, whatever. Just do it. Just do it. You may surprise yourself with what you're capable of. You may surprise yourself with the way that your life is going to change from taking this journey. I'm so stoked that I did this, and it's only getting better and better because it's opened doors for me, and it's brought new people into my life and all this. Anyway, and this YouTube channel is a really great way for me to connect with people that may know me from Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, who are just used to me just putting up pictures and sharing other people's videos. This is more of a personal way, so I can feel like I'm just talking to you. Yay, awesome. I love YouTube. And it's funny because I'm a person who hates with the fire of 1,000 suns getting their picture taken. When everyone else is, throwing 15 million selfies on Facebook, that's not me. I find it really hard to take a good selfie because I'll do like 5 of them and I'll be like, oh, this is dog crap. No one's going to want to look at this. I don't want to look at this. I'm getting better at that. But posing for pictures is just, and then people are like, smile. Yeah, because I could smile on command. Yeah, that's absolutely always going to work. Yeah, that'll work. Not. Said no one ever. That smile and, no, I'm not, that's too posed, not natural. It's like the natural flow of things. So that's me. But I've really taken to YouTube quite well, doing a little bit better with it quite well. Finally figured out the editing. Oh, and one not so unimportant point, I will not be holding up a book in front of the camera where all the writing's backward. I learned that the hard way. Thank you for those. My mother actually emailed me. Video wasn't up 5 minutes. Is there something special that I'm supposed to download so I could see the writing that's going in the right direction? No, that's just your daughter being a YouTube idiot and not realizing that when you hold a book up from this viewpoint, everything's going to be backward. I just, wasn't thinking. So we won't have any more of that. Any writing that you're going to see is when the camera lens is pointed at that object. But in this screen, all backward. I just never considered it because, like I said, this is a, learning process. All of this has been a learning process. What to do, what not to do. So, anyway, if you're thinking of writing, go for it. Doesn't matter how old you are. I've been writing since I was 12. I didn't start doing the self-publishing to where other people are seeing my stuff till I was in my 50s. You were never, ever bloody too old. Please, please, please don't let the fear of the unknown get you. Please don't. just go with it. If you feel it in your heart and you feel the inspiration coming to you, run with it. There's a saying, I saw it on a bumper sticker. You can't credit me with this. It's a surfing thing. If it swells, ride it. Okay, that could be taken in a lot of different ways, but the way that I look at it, if you feel that swell of inspiration, jump on that thing and just ride it and take it for all it's worth. Let it take you to really great destinations, a really great journey. And the people in my life now, if you told me this 5 years ago when I started doing this that I'd meet all these people and interact with these and have a Facebook page and actually have kind of a following, I'm like, a bit like, yeah, right, BS. But yeah, it's been a fun time so far. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, a lot of times it's frustrating too, like when your creativity goes away, which I'll get into that in a minute. So my tools of the trade are, as you saw in the teaser video, I'm inspired by visuals, I'm inspired by experiences, I'm inspired by music. Music is a big thing with me. What I suggest that you do, if you even if you've been writing for a while, as you saw in the beginning, the teaser trailer, I had a bunch of notebooks. That notebook that has the seashells on the cover, that I brought that on vacation with me when I went to Connecticut this past June, and one day it came to me, I sat down and I started writing a rough outline for the book that I'm working on right now, which is called Becoming. Becoming is the sequel to Dare to Be, by the way. So I wrote that out in there. I highly suggest carry a notebook, doesn't matter, big, small, whatever, a pad of paper, anything. Some people like to write on their phones. I'm not one of them. I'm very old school. Sorry, excuse my language. I even have a date. You know how people in the old, well, they still sell them, but date books and agenda books with the years and the months and all that. I'm old school. I have date books going back years where I write down like doctor's appointments or activities or people's phone numbers. I'm very old school. But hey, like they say, your mileage may vary. Whichever works for you, I suggest. But I always have a notebook available. I work a corporate job and I'll be sitting there, and like the other day, I just started writing stuff down for this show, actually, stuff that I wanted to cover. So I'm getting struck by inspiration. I'll just jot stuff down and then keep right on working. Or when you're in the grocery store, or a friend of mine too told me that he will record stuff. He has an iPhone and he'll record ideas for stuff. He's a songwriter too. My friend Dave Toller. Hey, Dave. Anyway, I think he was the one that was telling me that he uses his cell phone to record his ideas too. So that's another thing too. But whatever way works, that's always my stuff is usually in the written form, and then I could go back to it. It's funny. I found the old outline for Dare to Be, and the names are completely different. The story's a little bit different. So, but anyway, so there's that. So notebooks are a great thing. But once I'm also too, what's kind of helped me, for example, last fall, I went to Weeki Wachee, which is where the mermaids are. And when I watched, they had mermaids that are there all the time, that are younger ladies, and they get in the water and do their routines. And then they had the show where they brought back all these mermaids that had done shows in the 60s and 70s, and they were older women, and they were in damn good shape. I mean, better shape than I am, by far, but better shape than a lot of people. And they're doing their show, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm getting inspired as I'm watching the show, and I'm like, how about if I wrote a story, a novel about women who worked in a water park similar to Weeki Wachee, and made it a story. So last November, I participated in what they call NaNoWriMo. I think that's how you pronounce it. National Novel Writing Month is what that stands for, and that's what November is National Writing Novel Month. Anyway, just it's National Novel Writing Month. I think that's what it is. Anyway, and you write a novel in a month. And I put myself to the test, and I hunkered down and I did it. I kicked out a little over 100 pages for Into the Blue, and that was the story of four women that met when they were 18 years old in 1960 in a water park called Wonderful Water World, kind of inspired by Weeki Wachee. And the book's in two parts. They meet, and it kind of shows their lives as the park opens, and then it falls on hard times and ends up closing, and then they kind of separate like a lot of people do in life. And then the book starts up now more in real time, 2018 or whatever, where one of the women dies, and in her will she asks the three remaining friends to come back together. And what they do is that they take her ashes and they put them in the Gulf of Mexico, and it reignites this relationship with these three young women who had kind of lost touch over 30 or 40 years or whatever it was, and they kind of come together, and towards the end they end up getting in an RV and going on a trip. So that it's kind of interesting because I was inspired by the Mermaids, but I just kind of took it a little bit further. And there's VW Beetles and buses and Mustangs in there. Those are great loves of mine, and those cars in the 60s and 70s, I mean, even now still have a lot of charm. So that's a great book. Please, if you're into that sort of thing. And the cool thing about doing that book is that I am a big fan of what they call Old Florida. And Old Florida is places like Sunken Gardens and Weeki Wachee and Gatorland, and there's actually a book that someone else wrote. I've seen it advertised at a time for a time on Facebook about roadside stops and things like that, and what I call Old Florida. Old Florida is Florida before Disney, Universal, these big, huge, expansive parks, which they're great and everything. I'm a real fan of vintage stuff, and I'm a huge fan of Old Florida. And when I started with Into the Blue, I had to basically create a small town on a thin air. So I think this town I came up with was called Weeping Springs for that story. And then Weeping Springs is kind of like more or less loosely based on Weeki Wachee, where it's way up US Highway 19, where it's not like stores everywhere and car dealerships everywhere. It's more Old Florida. I mean, the road goes from an 8-lane death strip to like a 4-lane death strip, or maybe in cases a 2-lane death strip the further up you get. And you have more wide open spaces, you have more older buildings when you get way up there. And that's what I was kind of in mind when I was writing about Weeping Springs, which is where Wonderful Water World was. Also, I created a place called Edsel Beach, which would have been further up and more on the beach, and they had like a playland there, and I was thinking of kind of like a Coney Island type thing, but with a lot of Florida charm. And that book, I had a lot of fun writing that, and I have a sequel that I have sequels that I'm thinking about writing for those. I just haven't gotten there yet. So there's that. So anyway, kind of long-winded, but that's a good way that experience kind of led me to want to write a book from it. So there's that too, getting out and seeing things, watching movies, listening to music, that type of stuff is also very inspirational. I've gotten a lot of inspiration from watching movies. When I wrote Deja Vu, I had gone to see the Sherlock Holmes that had Robert Downey Jr. in it, and I was just enamored. Listening to him talk in that British accent and watching him being dressed up in those vintage clothes, and that's what kind of, watching that movie is what kind of got me going with the whole Deja Vu thing. And then it, that's kind of the kickoff for Deja Vu, was watching that. And then that kind of, I got Deja Vu, then I got To the Manor Born, and then finally A Kiss and a Promise. And I think I've kind of run my course with that series, but I got 3 good books out of it. So yay for Robert, yay for Sherlock Holmes. Also, I mentioned music. The way that music inspires me is when I'm writing as you can see in the teaser trailer, I have what I call playlists. And there's certain types of music that I have on my general YouTube with all the songs, that there's certain songs at certain bands that just speak to me in certain ways that kind of are tailor made for the things that I'm writing about. Like when I was writing To the Manor Born, I was listening to a little bit more classical. Tony Banks from Genesis did some classical albums. One is called Six, the other is called Seven. I was listening to a lot of that when I was writing To the Manor Born, especially. I was listening to there's a book I did years ago called For All Time about a girl who loses her family on the Titanic, and I wrote it in 2012 when Titanic fever was like, because 2012 was the 100th anniversary of the Titanic sinking, and I'd always been fascinated by the Titanic, so I decided to write a book about somebody who actually survives the sinking and how her life turns out. And the music that I was listening to for that primarily was the Titanic Requiem, which Robin Gibb from the Bee Gees, yeah, him, and his son R.J. Gibb had worked with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in London and put together this whole symphony about the Titanic and inspired by the Titanic. I'm getting chills when I'm talking about this, but anyway, that's music. Certain types of music does move me. When I was writing Dare to Be, and not even now when I'm working on Becoming, I'm using the same music that I used for Dare to Be, and most of that is non vocal. There's a group I'm into. They're called Finland and Askaven. I think that they're from the Netherlands, and I guess you'd call it neoclassical. Their music is just like, I love it. I can't get enough. I listen to them. I listen to them when I'm working in my corporate job. I listen to them here. The music just, for some reason, just really, really works with Dare to Be. And whenever I hear that music, I think of Henry and Finn immediate. I mean, that's what I think about when I hear those songs. That's my go-to, is my book, because it's so closely. I think that if I ever turned any of the stuff in a movie, I would definitely be contacting the people in that group to see if they could construct a soundtrack for me. They're just phenomenal, phenomenal work. They're good. There's a group called Blank and Jones. They are from Germany, I think, and they do a lot of instrumental and ambient music. As you saw in my teaser trailer, their stuff is all through most everything except for Dare to Be has been with them in the background. And they'll have fast songs and they'll have slow songs and they'll have songs that just, there's a song that they did that I love. It's called Blue Pacific, and I was listening to that one a lot. That's off an album called Relax Number 9 that came out in 2015. And if you go on iTunes, it's in there. That's where I got mine. But there's a song there called Blue Pacific, which is probably one of my favorite songs by any band of any time. And when I hear that song, I think of Laura Bond immediately. I think of The Girl in the Sea immediately. I think of her and Jamie immediately. And I'll tell you what, this is a little embarrassing, but this is how deep I get into this stuff. When I drove to Mystic in 2016, I had all this stuff on my iPod that was hooked into my car, and it was playing in the stereo. And when I was driving in the streets of Mystic, I was on the shore on the other side of Mystic Seaport, and I had my player in shuffle, which the songs will play out of order. It's like kind of like listening to the radio, old school, but it was on shuffle. And as I pulled in and looked across and saw the ships from Mystic Seaport, Blue Pacific started playing on my player, and I just put my car in park, and I just cried. There's just the timing of that song, and I'm like, oh my God. And the whole time I'm kind of crying and looking across the river, and the song's playing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm really here. I've dreamed about being here. I've written about being here, and I'm really here. So Anyway, I get a little emotional a bit when I talk about my books and my inspiration because it's me. You know, this is all me. This all comes out of here, and it also comes from here, from the heart. So I have a tendency to personalize a lot of this stuff. So there's that. So those are a couple of tools in my trade, and there's also the visual, like I said, like with the Sherlock Holmes thing. I found some really great still shots of Robert Downey Jr. dressed up in his high collared jackets, the ruffled shirt, you know, his hair kind of flowing, and I'm like, yeah, that'll be my Raw Levette, by Robert Levette twins. That's who I kind of used for inspiration when I was writing Dare to Be. So if I can find a physical representation of what I'm thinking a character might look like, it helps the words flow just a little bit better than trying to. It's, I think, one reason why a, a book like The Things He's Seen that I started a few years ago that you saw in the teaser trailer, I think one reason why that really didn't get off the ground is because I didn't have anything physical to really base that character on. I just there it's that story is about a guy named Chris Porter who comes from a broken home and how he turns his life around. But I just didn't really have the physical, and it just it's for me. I need a physical representation, especially for my male characters in my books. I've always been like that. Even when I was young, even before I started this journey of doing the self-publishing stuff, that's always been my thing. So there's that. So let's see here. Projects that hit the wall. The aforementioned The Things He's Seen. I'd gone to Bug Jam in 2000. Sorry, it's not Bug Jam. It's VW's Over the Skyway. That one, that story hit the wall within a month, and then I was done. And then Sky Meets Heaven is another one, and that one got it's reading really well, but it kind of petered out, and I got involved with something else. Let's see. I have a list of them right here. Darn it, where'd that go? Okay, and What Remains was the last one that kind of petered out and hit the wall, and then Forever and Ever and Ever. I've been wanting to write another children's book. The other children's books are Fat Cat, A Tall Tale, A Closet Full of Cats, Another Tall Tale, and The Tale of Two Cats, and that's that series. And then I wanted to expand and write about dogs, which was where For the Love of Dogs came from. I've got all the visuals, but it's a matter of just sitting down and knocking that one out. Those children's books, I could write those like that. The problem with the children's books is the editing and getting the artwork to align well with around the print. Of editing, editing's the worst part of the process. I'm not gonna lie. That anybody that self-publishes is gonna agree. Trying to get that stuff formatted, it is not fun. The creation is fun. The inspiration's fun. That part's not fun. So there's that. So those are projects that I have on deck. I'm thinking of eventually, when I get through becoming, maybe just going back to the series that I started with Into the Blue about the four mermaids.